"Stop!" the woman shouted as her car suddenly died in the middle of the road. The mechanic, his jacket smeared with oil, rushed to the hood without even asking who she was. He knew every second mattered in moments like this. What unsettled him was her reaction. Instead of thanks, she smiled faintly, as if hiding something. He felt something strange under the hood, like the failure was intentional. "Who worked on this before?" he muttered, wiping the sweat from his forehead. The woman stayed silent. She simply handed him a business card with someone else's name on it. Her hand trembled, but her eyes remained cold, almost defiant. At that exact moment, a black car screeched to a stop at the corner, and a man in a suit watched them closely from behind tinted glass. The mechanic froze. This wasn't a simple roadside breakdown anymore, it felt like a trap. The woman slipped the card back into her pocket and whispered, "Don't ask questions." "But you're already involved." Her tone carried weight, and for a reason he couldn't explain, it made his chest tighten. Before he could respond, the man in the black car lowered his window slightly, revealing nothing but a polished wristwatch tapping impatiently on the door. "Who is he?" the mechanic demanded, lowering his voice. "You don't want to know," she replied quickly, her calm cracking for the first time. "Just get this running. Now." Her urgency made his hands move faster, though his mind spun with questions. He didn't know her name, didn't know why that car was waiting, but he knew one thing: walking away was no longer an option. Suddenly the black car's horn blared twice, sharp and commanding. The woman flinched, then turned her face away as if she was being timed. The mechanic tightened the last bolt, but his gut told him the real problem wasn't the car, it was the people around it. "Drive," he said, pushing the hood down. "And tell me why someone like him cares about this." The woman slid into the driver's seat, gripped the wheel, then leaned out the window. Her voice was low, but firm. "If I tell you now, you'll run. And I can't let you run." She pressed the ignition. The engine roared back to life, and the man in the suit shifted his gaze directly to the mechanic, as if memorizing his face. For a split second, the mechanic thought of backing away, letting them handle their own mess. But something in her eyes, fear mixed with resolve, pulled him in deeper. "You'll understand soon," she whispered before slamming the door shut. The tires screeched, the car shot forward, and the black sedan followed close behind. The mechanic stood on the street, hands still dirty with grease, heart pounding. He should have felt relief. Instead, he knew with certainty, whatever he had stepped into wasn't over. It was just the beginning. The mechanic stood frozen, the sound of screeching tires fading down the street. His heart hammered against his ribs. He should have gone back inside, washed the grease off his hands, and forgotten about her. But the way she looked at him, the urgency, the warning, refused to leave his mind. He turned toward his garage, trying to shake it off. Yet there it was, the business card she had pressed into his hand before pulling it back. In his rush he hadn't noticed, but now he saw the corner of it sticking out of his pocket. He unfolded it with trembling fingers. The name wasn't hers. And below the name, hastily scribbled in ink, just 2 words, "Help me." The mechanic's breath caught. He stared at the road, still shimmering with the marks of her tires. He could walk away, pretend he never saw it. No one would blame him. But the thought of her in that car, trapped between the fear in her voice and the man in the black sedan, burned in his chest. He cursed under his breath, wiped his hands on his jacket, and grabbed his own keys. His truck was old, unreliable, but it started with a groan. He wasn't even sure what he planned to do, just that he couldn't stay still. As he pulled onto the main road, he spotted the 2 cars ahead. They weren't moving fast. Almost as if the black sedan wanted her to know she was being followed, not chased. The mechanic tightened his grip on the wheel. "What the hell are you in, lady?" he muttered. Traffic thickened. A red light stopped him just as the woman's car turned sharply down a side street. The sedan followed. By the time the light changed, they were gone. Panic clawed at him. He slammed his fist against the steering wheel, then made a split-second choice. He turned after them. But the side street wasn't empty. A delivery truck had jackknifed it across the intersection, blocking his way. He swerved, tires screeching, barely missing a row of parked cars. His pulse roared in his ears. By the time he maneuvered around the truck, there was no sign of them. Just silence, and the faint echo of engines in the distance. Frustration boiled in his chest. He pulled over, breathing hard, the card still clutched in his hand. He could still turn back. Pretend this wasn't his problem. Yet as he sat there, headlights washed over his rearview mirror. Another car slowed behind him, too deliberate to be random. The mechanic's jaw clenched. Someone else had noticed him. And now he had to decide, run, or face whatever was coming. The car behind him didn't move. Its headlights stayed locked on his rearview mirror, too steady, too deliberate. The mechanic's palms grew slick on the steering wheel. He could drive off, but that would mean turning his back. Instead, he opened the door, stepped out into the cold night air, and faced the glare. "All right," he muttered, "let's see who's watching." The driver's door creaked open. A man stepped out, tall, lean, dressed not in a suit like the one in the black sedan, but in plain clothes. Yet his stance wasn't casual. He carried himself like someone who had been trained to observe, to wait. "You shouldn't be here," the man said flatly. The mechanic squared his shoulders. "Then maybe you tell me why." "Because I didn't ask for any of this." The stranger studied him, then glanced at the card still clenched in his fist. A faint smile tugged at his lips. "So she gave it to you?" He said it like a statement, not a question. The mechanic's chest tightened. "Who are you?" "Let's just say I'm not with them." "But you've just walked into something that doesn't forgive mistakes." Before the mechanic could respond, the man's phone buzzed. He pulled it out, his expression darkening as he read the screen. "Too late. They know you followed. And they don't let go." He slipped the phone back into his pocket. "If you care about breathing tomorrow, you'll listen." The mechanic felt his pulse hammering. "I'm not running. Not until I know what she's caught in." For the first time, the stranger's expression cracked. "She's not the only one." The words hit harder than he expected. "What's that supposed to mean?" But the man didn't answer. Instead, he tossed something small toward him. The mechanic caught it, a folded photograph, worn at the edges. He unfolded it, and froze. It was him. Years younger, standing outside the same garage. Next to him was someone he hadn't seen in a long time, someone he had cut ties with after everything went wrong. His stomach twisted. "Where did you get this?" The stranger only shook his head. "Ask the wrong question, and you won't live to hear the answer." Before the mechanic could push further, a low rumble echoed from down the street. Headlights flared, brighter, faster this time. More cars, moving in formation. Whoever they were coming. The stranger's voice sharpened. "You've got seconds to choose. Walk away and pretend you never saw her, or get in and find out why your past just caught up with your present." The mechanic's knuckles tightened around the photograph, his mind racing. His truck sat behind him, old but still running. The stranger's car waited, engine idling. Both roads stretched into darkness. And then the approaching engines roared closer, leaving him no time to think. Engines thundered closer, their beams cutting through the dark. The mechanic's breath came hard as the stranger jerked his chin toward the idling car. Decide. Every muscle screamed for him to run, to hide. But his fingers clenched around the worn photograph until the paper bent. He didn't know what trap this was, or why that woman had dragged him into it, but something told him this wasn't random. His past had clawed its way back, and if he didn't face it now, it would swallow him later. He sprinted to the stranger's car and slid inside. The engine roared, and they shot forward just as two black sedans tore onto the street behind them. Tires screeched, horns blared. The mechanic gripped the seat, adrenaline firing through his veins. "Who are they?" he demanded. The stranger's jaw tightened. "The kind of men who don't knock twice. And the kind of men she's trying to escape." For a moment, the mechanic caught a glimpse of her car up ahead, a silver streak weaving between traffic. Relief flared. She was still in sight. But seconds later, one of the black sedans swerved, cutting her lane. Her brake lights flashed, then disappeared as the cars boxed her in. "Stop the car," the mechanic barked. "We can't leave her." The stranger's eyes flicked toward him, steady, calculating. "If you rush now, you'll both end up dead. You want to help her? Think smarter than them." The words bit, but they made sense. The mechanic's fists trembled with frustration, yet he forced himself to breathe. He scanned the street, spotted a narrow alley cutting across to the next block. "There, take it." The stranger didn't argue. He yanked the wheel, the car skidding into the alley. They burst out on the far side, just ahead of the blockade. For a split second, the mechanic saw her again, the woman's face in the rearview mirror of her trapped car. Fear. And something else, resolve. It lit a fire in him. He shoved the door open before the stranger could stop him, landing hard on the pavement. He ran toward her car as one of the men yanked her door open. His shout cut through the chaos, "Get away from her." For once, luck sided with him. The sudden distraction gave her just enough time to slam the door shut and lock it again. The sedan jolted forward, engines roaring in frustration. He had bought her seconds, nothing more, but in that moment, it felt like a victory. Panting, he turned back toward the stranger's car, only to freeze. One of the men from the black sedans now stood there, blocking the way. His suit was immaculate, his expression calm, but his eyes cut like knives. And in his hand, between two fingers, he held the very same photograph the mechanic still had in his pocket. The man tilted his head, almost smiling. "Funny how the past has a way of finding you." The man in the suit twirled the photograph between his fingers, his calm more terrifying than anger. The mechanic's throat tightened. He had no weapon, no plan, just calloused hands and a racing heart. "What do you want from me?" he demanded. The man's smile sharpened. "You still don't see it. You were never just a bystander." He flicked the photo toward him like a card at a poker table. "You've always been part of this." The mechanic bent to snatch it, but the man's polished shoe slammed down, pinning it to the ground. "Walk away now, and maybe you keep your little shop, your quiet life. Stay, and you'll lose everything." Something in his voice cut deep. The mechanic had spent years clawing for stability after losing almost everything once before. The thought of going through that hell again made his chest ache. Yet when he looked past the man, he saw her, the woman in the car, still boxed in, gripping the wheel with white knuckles. She wasn't walking away. How could he? He forced himself to meet the man's gaze. "Then I guess I'm staying." The man's jaw flexed, just slightly. His calm cracked. "A foolish choice." He raised a hand, and two more suited figures stepped from the shadows. The mechanic's pulse spiked. He backed away, searching desperately. His eyes landed on a discarded wrench near the curb, half buried in grime. Instinct drove him, he lunged, snatched it up, and swung as one of the men reached for him. The impact rang through his bones. The man staggered, but it was enough to prove he wouldn't fold. But victory was fleeting. A blow slammed into his ribs from behind, sending him sprawling onto the pavement. Pain flared sharp and hot. He gasped, struggling to rise, clutching the wrench like a lifeline. "Stay down," one of them barked. "This isn't your fight." But it was. Every fiber of him screamed that this wasn't just about her anymore, it was about everything he'd buried, every mistake he thought he'd left behind. He coughed, tasted blood, but forced himself upright. "If it wasn't my fight," he rasped, "you wouldn't be here." For a moment, silence hung heavy. Then the woman's car door burst open. She stumbled out, her voice raw with urgency, "Stop. Don't touch him." The suited men froze. Not because of her words, but because of what she held in her hand, something small, metallic, gleaming under the streetlights. The mechanic couldn't see it clearly, but the men did. And for the first time, their composure faltered. The man in the suit's voice dropped low, almost reverent. "Where did you get that?" The woman's eyes locked on the mechanic, not them. "He deserves to know." The metallic object in the woman's hand caught the streetlight again, its edge sharp, unmistakable. The suited men stiffened as though facing something far more dangerous than a weapon. The mechanic, clutching his side, forced himself upright. Pain radiated through his ribs, each breath shallow. What is that?" he croaked. The woman didn't look at him. Her eyes stayed locked on the man in the suit. "You know what this means. Let us walk away, and maybe you keep your silence." The man's calm cracked into a scowl. "That doesn't belong to you." And he jabbed a finger toward the mechanic, wasn't supposed to see it. The mechanic's grip tightened on the wrench. His mind spun. This was about more than her car breaking down. More than chance. And then his gaze dropped to the photo still crumpled in his hand. The same photo the stranger had given him in the alley. His younger self staring back, standing beside someone he hadn't spoken to in years. Someone who was supposed to be gone. He swallowed hard, his voice rough. "What does my past have to do with any of this?" The woman finally turned her eyes on him. Something flickered there, guilt, regret, or maybe pity. "Because it was never just your past." The words chilled him, but before he could press, one of the suited men lunged. She raised the object higher, her voice sharp, "Stay back." They hesitated, but the standoff stretched thin. One wrong move and it would break. The mechanic's chest burned with each breath. His strength was fading fast, but retreat wasn't in him. He stepped forward, positioning himself between her and the men. His legs trembled, but his voice was steady. "If you want her, you go through me." The man in the suit sneered. "You won't last." "Then let's see," the mechanic shot back. Before another blow could fall, a sharp whistle cut through the night. All heads turned. Down the block, the plainclothed stranger from earlier leaned against his car, arms crossed, watching. His voice carried across the street. "Careful. You're playing with history you can't control." The mechanic's pulse spiked. That man again. He held the missing piece, the connection. The one who knew how his past bled into this night. For an instant, the mechanic thought he'd finally get the answer. But the stranger only smirked and slid into his car. The engine roared, tires spinning as he vanished into the dark, taking the truth with him. The mechanic's knees nearly buckled. His body begged him to quit, to collapse. Yet when the woman's hand brushed his arm, steadying him, something inside him reignited. Whatever this fight was, it wasn't finished. And now, the mystery wasn't just hers, it was his too. The mechanic's body screamed with pain, but adrenaline kept him on his feet. The woman's grip on his arm steadied him just as the suited men regrouped, circling like wolves. Then, abruptly, the leader raised his hand, signaling them to stop. His gaze locked on the object she held, his lips curling into something between rage and amusement. "You think that protects you?" he said coldly. "You don't even know what it means." Her jaw tightened. "I know enough." The mechanic wanted to believe her. But doubt gnawed at him. Her calm in the chaos, her mysterious smile when they first met, was she really on his side? Before he could process, the man in the suit snapped his fingers. Another car pulled up, its doors swinging open. And from the back stepped someone the mechanic never thought he'd see again. It was the man from the photograph, older now, harder, but unmistakable. His former friend. The one he'd lost everything with years ago. The mechanic's chest hollowed. No, it can't be. His old friend's eyes met his, unreadable. Then he spoke, voice sharp as a blade, "You should have stayed out of this." The betrayal cut deeper than any blow. The mechanic staggered, his strength draining. This wasn't random. This was orchestrated. She hadn't just dragged him into danger, she'd pulled him back into the very nightmare he had spent years escaping. He dropped the wrench, his knees buckling. For a moment, the fight drained out of him completely. The suited men stepped closer, their confidence restored. The leader smirked. Pathetic. Some hero. But then he felt it, her hand again, pressing the metallic object into his palm. He looked down, surprised. She whispered urgently, "Don't give up." Not yet. Hope flickered. It was small, fragile, but it was there. He closed his fingers around the object, its weight grounding him, reminding him he wasn't powerless. The man in the suit leaned closer, his words meant only for him. "You'll never win. You don't even know why you're fighting." The mechanic forced his battered body upright, meeting his enemy's stare. "Then tell me," he rasped. The man's smile widened, cruel and deliberate. "Ask your friend. He's the one who sold you out." The words landed like a hammer. The mechanic's head spun, betrayal thick in his veins. His friend, his brother in arms, stood silent, offering no denial. And then headlights flared at the end of the street. More engines. Reinforcements. Not just 2 or 3 this time, an entire convoy. The woman's voice trembled as she whispered, "We're out of time." The roar of engines filled the night, growing louder with every second. The convoy's headlights carved long streaks of white across the street. The mechanic's battered lungs burned, his ribs ached, but the pressure in his chest was no longer just pain, it was decision. The woman grabbed his sleeve. "We have to move. Now." He glanced at her, then at the object she had pressed into his hand. Its weight was strange, too heavy for its size. He had no idea what it was, but the way those men looked at it made one thing certain, it mattered. And then his eyes fell again on the crumpled business card in his pocket. The one she had handed him at the start. The scrawled words still etched in ink, "Help me." His jaw tightened. She wasn't just running. She was playing a dangerous game, and she had chosen him, dragged him, into it. The suited leader stepped closer, his men forming a line behind him. "Hand it over," he commanded. His tone wasn't a threat. It was an order. "Do that, and maybe you limp away." The mechanic stared at him, chest heaving. For a flicker of a moment, the idea tempted him. Surrender. End this madness. Go back to his garage, his quiet life. But then he looked at the woman again, saw the terror behind her bravado, and remembered the photograph in his fist, the face of the friend who once betrayed him. He spat blood onto the pavement and tightened his grip on the object. "If you want it, come take it." The leader's eyes narrowed. "So be it." Chaos erupted. The convoy braked hard, doors flying open, men spilling out. The mechanic swung wildly with the wrench in one hand, the mysterious object clutched in the other. Every strike sent fire through his battered ribs, but he refused to fall. Not again. Not this time. "Why him?" one of the men shouted amid the clash. "Why is he so important?" The words sliced through him. Important? To them? He had spent years buried in obscurity, trying to rebuild from nothing. Yet here he was, the center of a storm he didn't understand. The woman's voice broke through the noise, fierce and desperate. Because he's the only one left. The mechanic froze, the world tilting. The only one, what? He gasped. But before she could answer, a deafening blast tore through the street. The lead car of the convoy exploded into flame, shrapnel raining down. Screams filled the air. The shockwave threw him to the ground, knocking the object from his grip. He scrambled, lungs burning, eyes darting, and froze. The metallic object lay in the street, glowing faintly under the firelight. And from the shadows beyond the blaze, a familiar figure stepped forward, calm and deliberate. The plain-clothed stranger. His voice cut through the chaos, steady and merciless. Time's up. Now he learns the truth. Flames devoured the wrecked car, the street alive with chaos. The mechanic struggled to his feet, lungs searing, ribs screaming with each breath. His eyes locked on the metallic object lying in the middle of the road, its glow pulsing faintly against the firelight. The plain-clothed stranger advanced, calm and deliberate, boots crunching on shattered glass. "Pick it up," he said, voice like steel. The mechanic staggered forward, but the suited leader stepped into his path, eyes blazing. "Don't listen to him. That thing is a curse. It destroyed everything once, and it will again." The woman grabbed the mechanic's arm. "Don't trust either of them. Just run." Her words cracked with desperation, but her grip trembled. "Enough lies." The mechanic roared, his voice breaking. He turned to the stranger. "You knew me. Years ago. Why are you dragging me back into this?" For the first time, the stranger's calm cracked. "Because you were the last one who walked away. And because he pointed at the suited leader, never forgave you for it." The world tilted. The mechanic's gaze darted between them, his chest hollowing. The man in the suit smirked, confirming it without words. The betrayal he thought was years buried was now alive, standing in front of him. Rage boiled in his veins. So this was never about her car. It was about me. The suited leader's smile sharpened. "Finally. You see it." Before he could react, his former friend, the man from the photograph, stepped forward from the shadows. His voice was low, bitter. "You left me to take the fall. You built your quiet little life while I paid the price." The mechanic's breath caught. Memories he had fought to bury surged back, choices made, debts unpaid, the night everything collapsed. He tried to speak, to defend himself, but no words came. The suited men closed in, their circle tightening. The woman's voice trembled, pleading now, "Don't let them take it. If they get it, it's over, for all of us." The mechanic dropped to one knee, strength fading, pain swallowing him whole. The metallic object still pulsed on the ground, so close he could almost touch it. Yet every force around him demanded a different choice, the stranger urging him forward, the woman begging him to run, his old friend glaring with the fury of years lost. He stretched out a shaking hand toward the object, only for a gunshot to split the air. The bullet sparked against the pavement inches from his fingers. Everyone froze. On the rooftop above, a new silhouette appeared, weapon trained on the street. The voice that followed was cold, decisive, and absolute. "No one moves until I say so." The street fell silent under the echo of the gunshot. Flames flickered against broken glass, shadows stretching long across the pavement. The mechanic froze, his hand inches from the glowing object. On the rooftop, the silhouette shifted, voice sharp and commanding, "Enough games. Bring it to me." The suited leader sneered. Another vulture. The plain-clothed stranger's jaw clenched. "He doesn't deserve it." The woman stepped forward, trembling but fierce. "None of you do. He's the only one who's earned it." Her words struck him like lightning. The only one left. They had said it before, hinted at it, but now he understood. All of this, the chase, the betrayal, the photograph, had circled back to him. Not because he was strong, but because he was still standing when everyone else had fallen. His old friend snarled. "You left me behind, and now they choose you?" His voice cracked with rage and grief. "I lost everything while you hid in that garage." The mechanic's heart ached, but he didn't flinch. "I wasn't hiding. I was surviving. And I'll keep surviving, on my terms." He lunged, scooping the object into his palm. A surge of weight filled him, not mystical, not magic, but the crushing reality of responsibility. Every eye locked on him. He could surrender it and live quietly again, or fight, and risk losing it all. The rooftop gunman fired again, a warning shot. "Give it, or you all die." The mechanic rose slowly, battered, bloody, but unbroken. He raised his voice, "Steady now, you want it? You've taken everything from me before. Not this time." With a roar, he hurled the object, not to them, but into the burning wreckage. Flames swallowed it, sparks shooting skyward. Gasps broke from the circle. The suited leader lunged forward in fury. "No!" The blast came seconds later, the fireball lighting the night like dawn. The shockwave knocked them all to the ground. When the smoke cleared, the object was gone, destroyed, or freed, it didn't matter. Its hold was broken. The mechanic staggered up, lungs heaving, body shaking. The suited men were retreating, their power shattered without the prize. The rooftop silhouette vanished into the smoke. His old friend lay on the pavement, staring at him with hollow eyes, not defeated by fists, but by truth. The woman touched his arm, tears streaking her face. "You did it." He managed a ragged smile. "No, we did it." For the first time that night, the street was quiet. No engines, no orders, no shadows waiting to strike. Just silence, and the promise of a new beginning. The mechanic straightened, pain radiating through every bone, yet a strange lightness filled him. He had faced his past, his enemies, his own doubt, and he was still standing. Not because he was chosen. Not because he was lucky. But because he refused to quit. He looked at the woman, then at the ruined street behind them. "Let's rebuild," he said softly. And as they walked away from the flames, the night air carried not the weight of defeat, but the taste of freedom, hard-won and undeniable. The mechanic had nothing left, except everything ahead.